up today, Dallas Mavericks fans and MFFLs? Today is a very big day for the Dallas Mavericks, a very big day for the Dallas Mavericks fan base in general. We're talking about Game 6, the 5 seed Dallas Mavericks versus the 4 seed Los Angeles Clippers. The Dallas Mavericks do have a 3-2 series lead right now, and as of today, we do know Kawhi Leonard will not be playing in Game 6. So this is another opportunity for the Dallas Mavericks to come in here locked and loaded and ready and finish this thing out at home in front of the home crowd. A big Game 6. I've said many times already, I feel like the Los Angeles Clippers honestly play a little bit better without Kawhi Leonard out there, and especially a hobbled Kawhi Leonard, because now they don't feel the need necessarily to give him just forced touches sometimes. Because when you have a player the caliber of a healthy Kawhi Leonard, when he is healthy, that's a guy that you're going to have to get his touches within the flow of an offense as well. So you're looking at a team now having James Harden, a team that's having Paul George. You're looking at James Harden last game, 7 points. I believe Paul George was it 13 points, 15 points, something like that. It wasn't a game where the two stars that were still remaining were going to be able to one of those. It wasn't an output, I guess I want to say, an outing for either one of those guys that were pretty much going to show that they could have carried the Clippers to a victory in Game 5. The Dallas Mavericks handled that business. So if the Dallas Mavericks are going to come in here and handle business from the start, it's going to be with starting. I guess you want to say the beginning of the start. It's going to start with slowing down James Harden. You cannot let him get rolling early. That's what I'm saying. The number one thing I'm looking for the Mavericks to do is just kind of force his hand, whether it's full court pressing, which we saw employed a little bit in Game 5. You're talking about from Dante Exum. You're looking at some of these other guys, like Josh Green at certain points. We have some on-ball defenders that can give James Harden some issue, and also talk about Paul George. The number one thing you cannot do for Paul George is let him get rolling early. And I'm talking about giving up wide open shots. We've seen the scheme that Jason Kidd has employed a little bit in the postseason when we do consider to go to zone, or a lot of times we're playing a lot of man pretty much and switching, and certain points kind of keying in on one guy specifically to leave open on behind the three-point line. We've seen that used a few times from the Dallas Mavericks this season, and usually one thing we have kind of noticed is that output has kind of come when you see a Russell Westbrook on the court, a guy that you're not really worried about consistently knocking down three-point shots or outside jumpers in that for that matter. But let's be clear, these are NBA players. Everybody can get hot on any given night. So the Mavericks are going to have to come in here ready, intense, and locked and loaded, and ready to shut this thing down. Because the one thing you cannot do if you're the Dallas Mavericks is give the Los Angeles Clippers any chance of hope, any feeling of we can take this back to LA and try to get our own momentum rolling and see if we can close out this series in 7. You have got to come in here ready and put your foot on their necks from the beginning. I'm going to say one thing we're going to ask for specifically. I want to see PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. find some transition opportunities early in the game. We saw what happened with the Dallas Mavericks last game, especially. Some of the biggest issues I think we found was when we started to pound the rock a little bit much. Whether you're seeing is Luka Doncic continue. We're doing a lot of ISO pick and roll, which we do know the Dallas Mavericks. We do that very well. But what that allows the Clippers to do is set up. They do have some big bodies. They do have some length and some physical guys if you're able to kind of just make it more of a half-court game. So if the Dallas Mavericks are going to take advantage of what the Clippers are lacking, and also throw in a guy like Terrence Mann, again, a very important role player for the Los Angeles Clippers, and I believe as of right now, he's a game time decision. I think it came out yesterday he was questionable, but today it's a game time decision. Lower leg contusion, I believe. So we never know how this stuff goes. The NBA game is just there are lots of momentum plays, lots of guys pretty much just trying to lay it out there on the line. So Terrence Mann ends up a little banged up. We'll see if he's able to come out there and play. But for the Dallas Mavericks, we have got to get out in transition. We've seen a guy like Terrence Mann, just I guess you want to say. I want to say reasonable success, or a little bit throughout this series. I guess you want to say at least the earlier games in this series have given Luka Doncic a little bit of trouble, and some of it I feel like Luka, obviously he's still dealing with that knee issue, which will be major for the Mavericks if they're able to pull out a win today, because what that'll do, I believe, if we win in Game 6, it will allow the Mavericks about 4 days of rest, which will be big and huge going into a series against the Oklahoma City Thunder, a possible Oklahoma City versus Dallas Mavericks Thunder playoff series. So get rolling early. I'm gonna say if you do see a Terrence Mann out there, I want to see us attack him. I want to see us get out in transition. And the number one thing I stated last game, prior to last game, I will say, Luka Doncic, I want to see him aggressive and attacking the rim early. He's going to be able to get these shots whenever he can. I believe last game, I believe he goes 2 of 8 on 3. So the three-point ball is still not falling to the efficiency that we have seen at the peak of Luka Doncic shooting this season. But he is going to be cerebral in his attack, and that's what makes Luka Doncic the most dangerous. Attacking the rim, drives and kicks, but just taking advantage of those easy floaters. And when you see a guy like a Terrence Mann who may be a little bit hobbled himself, take advantage of some of these opportunities when the time comes. You're going to have Russell Westbrook out there on him at certain points, I believe. Probably a Paul George every now and then. You'll see, because they usually have tried to keep Paul George out of too much action. So you'll see him out on guys like a Derrick Jones Jr. or PJ Washington sometimes, and James Harden in certain extents. But also at the same time, you have seen lots of pick and rolls, lots of switches, and you may get a guy like James Harden on as well. So if you're able to kind of just get some of these guys in foul trouble early, or just make them exert some energy on defense, I feel like that's what's going to set apart what the Dallas Mavericks can get done in Game 6. And again, starting with Luka Doncic, aggressive from the beginning, not settling for these step back threes, not settling just for 3-point shots at all, and just attacking the rim and putting pressure on the Los Angeles Clippers from the tip-off. Going to this game, we're talking about Luka Doncic averaging about 30.2 points per game, and Kyrie Irving himself averaging about 25.6, 25.8, something like that, points per game this series as well. So we're having two guys that are going to be able to push the issue. And look at Kyrie Irving. We already know we can kind of go into just the tempo, the speed that he plays with. Last game, Kyrie Irving was doing everything that he needed to do to help lead to a victory. I believe he only had 14 points, but it was nothing that you could look at a Kyrie Irving game from last game and say, he was not aggressive. He was not giving us everything. We saw him on the floor, diving for loose balls. You see him out in transition, getting the ball up, getting guys out into up-tempo transition position. And also, when you're talking about what Kyrie Irving is going to bring, you know he has big expectations for himself in a closeout game, a possible closeout game versus the Los Angeles Clippers. A lot of people throughout the offseason, the Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving duo, it's not going to work. Too many guys, they're too ball dominant, too many guys, they want the ball in their hands. We've seen it play out perfectly. Luka Doncic is going to get Kyrie Irving the ball in certain spots. Kyrie Irving is going to get Luka Doncic the ball in certain spots. And they've kind of learned to just completely play off each other. And the biggest thing I will say that Kyrie Irving has brought to this team, PJ Washington alluded to it, I believe, a couple days ago at this point. He says, Kyrie Irving is the leader of this team. He is the guy that we kind of look to for that veteran presence, that calming presence, and he's the guy we believe can help lead us to the promised land. Obviously, we know Luka Doncic is a de facto leader because he's the best player on your team, and he has such a big personality and a big voice himself. But what I love the most about Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, especially just being on this team, is Luka Doncic has given Kyrie Irving the full reins to be that leader on his team with no pushback. And Kyrie Irving has shown many times he's the one that's kind of in Luka Doncic's ear when it's time to get him under control sometimes. And Luka Doncic, I just appreciate the fact that he is taking that. And again, we still have some issues where you're talking about maybe Luka Doncic sometimes you feel like he might complain to the refs a little bit. You might complain, but at the end of the day, I don't want to take that away from Luka Doncic because that's also the same Luka Doncic that we see get into chattering matches again with the Los Angeles Clippers bench. And you're looking at him talking to the fans. That's the same Luka Doncic. He takes this game seriously, and I know he wants everybody else around him. But just having Kyrie Irving as that veteran presence of an NBA champion, hitting possibly the biggest shot in NBA Finals history up to this point, we're looking at him to be that guy to help kind of, I guess you want to say, get the rest of the guys in the mental state that we need to be in going into Game 6, a possible closeout game against the Clippers at home, and we'll see if that's the case. But Kyrie Irving, he's just been a godsend for this team. We're looking for a guy that's going to continue to just help and play off of a Luka Doncic because some of the issues we've always seen when you're talking about what have been the Dallas Mavericks issues throughout the play, and I just want to say Luka Doncic's early career, but it's more so specifically we're talking about playing against the Clippers so many times in the postseason. We have seen too many instances where Luka Doncic is having to carry the load. Not that he is carrying the load, he's having to carry the load. In addition to the fact not having anybody that's going to be a consistent number two or a guy that you at least have to have that threat of. We know he can get 30 to 40 on any given night just because of who he is. Kyrie Irving is that special player, and he's a special, especially a perfect matchup, a match, I guess you will say, with a player like Luka Doncic. You're looking at the Dallas Mavericks and talking about defensively. Paul George and James Harden have combined, I believe, about 42 points per game combined. We're talking about a little less than 12 assists per game combined, and also about 10 rebounds combined. These are some issues that the Los Angeles Clippers, I'm sure, they wanted to see those guys continue to completely take charge of this offensive, I guess you want to say offensive situation for the Los Angeles Clippers, not having a guy like Kawhi Leonard, especially a healthy Kawhi Leonard, and now you're talking about some of the other banged up guys. Zubac has been a big addition for that team. I'm talking about what he's obviously been with the Clippers, but I mean a big part of what they've been able to get done on the offensive side of the ball, whether he's against a guy like a Daniel Gafford, the landlord, or a guy like Derek Lively, who I feel has given him much more issue than a Daniel Gafford. And to me, that's kind of in the same sense of that Daniel Gafford is more of a physical presence, and when you have a balancing act like that, when you're talking about Zubac, who's also a physical force down low for the Clippers, that sometimes can counterbalance and just, I guess you want to say completely kind of cancel each other out. So Derek Lively, that's who I'm looking to see get lots of run in this game. There should be so many open opportunities for him to run the floor, catch easy lobs, and we see what Derek Lively has done even more so is just being able to play with that tenacity and that intensity, but not get into foul trouble consistently. We saw some of those issues early in the season. It was just a learning process. I kept saying early on in the season, Derek Lively is going to figure out this foul thing. He's going to figure out when to be aggressive, when to not be aggressive, and sometimes it's not even always about blocking the shot. It's about contesting the shot. Daniel Gafford, we know he can definitely get that done, but Derek Lively just showing the growth that he has as a 20-year-old and who's going to be a very big part of the Dallas Mavericks future going forward. It's just great to be able to get him in the postseason. I want to see him get lots of run tonight, and we're talking about that combination of Paul George and James Harden. Derrick Jones Jr., PJ Washington, they are going to have to be locked down tonight. I don't want this to be one of those games we're kind of sweating out into the last second, even though it could be, because they say, let's be clear, the Clippers do have some heart. They do have some players that have a lot to prove. We know all the noise is going to be talked about the Clippers if they lose this game tonight, of course, and then you're going to be looking at the situation of the Clippers having to ask themselves, are we going to blow this thing up? Is it time to just move on? Paul George obviously is going to be one of the hot names is going to be around, talking about maybe an acquisition for a team. So you're now going to be able to possibly see a Paul George and a James Harden come out there ready to go and try to give it everything they have in what could be one last outing. So we're going to need our guys on the perimeter. Derrick Jones Jr., like I said, Paul George, Derrick Jones Jr., PJ Washington, but especially Derrick Jones Jr. last game, kind of just making a name for himself. 3 blocks last game. A guy that's kind of been able to talk to him a little bit post-game, and he talks about how he just has a natural chip on his shoulder because he was an undrafted guy. He always had to work for everything. He always had to work his way. Sometimes he didn't even think he was going to be on a roster, and he gets himself on that roster and somehow keeps working himself in the rotation. So this is a guy I know is going to come out here ready. He's going to come out here intense and come out here with the same fire that we need, and also throwing in other role players like a Maxi Kleber who ends up with 5 3-pointers last game, going, I believe, 5 of 7. We're going to need Dante Exum. We're going to need Josh Green, some of these guys to knock down open shots because the Clippers are going to, and Ty Lue, let's be clear, Ty Lue is still a very solid coach, a very solid NBA coach, and I have great respect for what he can get done when it comes to schemes. So, Ty Lue's going to pretty much try to throw everything that he can. The Clippers are going to try to throw everything they can at Luka Doncic, at Kyrie Irving, at the rest of the role players surrounding them and see what exactly they can come out on top. But we have got to have our role players step up. It's a home game in front of the home crowd. It's game 6. You now have the opportunity to wrap this thing up and go face the Oklahoma City Thunder in the next round. So if you're as serious as you say you are, this is the perfect time to show it to all of us, the entire world. Game 6, Dallas Mavericks leading the series 3-2 against the 4th-seed Los Angeles Clippers. The game will be at 8:30 p.m. Central Time on ESPN tonight. This is going to be, again, a very big game for lots of narratives. The Dallas Mavericks need this game, personally, in my opinion, because you have got to finish this thing off so that you can get yourself a few days of rest. We know Luka Doncic needs it. I'm sure Kyrie Irving, some of these other guys. We also talk about, at this point in time, unless you're talking about major injuries, which a knee sprain and knee issue that Luka Doncic does have could play major dividends if you didn't have a player, to me, with his tenacity and his mental toughness that Luka Doncic has shown many times. You can say whatever you want to him, but Luka Doncic has shown mental toughness throughout his entire career. Never complaining. Yes, I'm the only guy that really can do much on some of these other teams that he's had, and he did not complain, just goes out there and tries to get the job done to the best of his ability. You now have guys around him that can finish this thing up. I want the Mavericks to completely just kind of take advantage of an opportunity they do have. But like I was about to go into, just the simple fact, getting 3 extra days, 4 days of rest until the next game against what would be the Oklahoma City Thunder in the next round is going to be pay major dividends, because you get to this part of the season, there are guys that are just banged up all across the board around the entire league, around the entire NBA playoffs. So you can just, if you can give yourself as much rest as you can before you knew you have to go face off against a young team in Oklahoma City Thunder, who at some point, obviously, you hear kind of things that going around that they'd be a team that you could see getting knocked off. But at the end of the day, sometimes it is a bad thing that they don't really have an experience, because sometimes now you're just playing free for all. You're not really worried about it. You don't have the stresses of a veteran that kind of has these high expectations. So the Dallas Mavericks have got to handle business first tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers in Game 6. You will be at home. Finish this thing up in front of the home crowd and let us just have something to be even more excited about. I appreciate you guys for all the support. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share. We will be right back to discuss the game tomorrow. If not tonight, it'll definitely be tomorrow, and we'll see how the cards fall. But I appreciate you guys for all the support. Again, we are now past 1,000 subscribers. The next goal is 2,000. I want to continue to grow with you guys. I want you guys to continue to grow with me. Keep interacting. I'm going to keep responding. I love all the interaction that you guys do give. So I appreciate all the support once again. As always, go Mavs. And also, Enjoy the rest of your day.